we still have to live our lives. And it's not just about the destination, it's about the journey, it's about the process along the way. And it's about creating systems and processes and habits that help support you on the way to the destination and to the goal.
Welcome to the Her First podcast, a platform to help online business owners, coaches, and creators gain the confidence needed to build a successful business while creating a sustainable lifestyle balance. We are here to help you prioritize yourself in business and life. I'm Joanna Newton.
And I'm Michelle Puolani. In this podcast, along with the Her First Collective, you can engage in the challenges women face in business, ways to increase your impact or income online, and how to make it all work while launching, scaling, or maintaining. Spoiler, it's not about perfectionism, hustling, or a copy-paste methodology. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Her First podcast. So let me start by asking you, what is a goal that you're not sure if you're actually on track for this year? We know that setting goals in your business and life is absolutely essential, right? I mean, we're here because of goals that we've set in the past. But it's equally as important to think about the goal stepping or the milestones that you have along the way in order to achieve those goals. And so often we set goals without a clear strategy, no focus, or even a plan to keep us on track as we move toward those goals. Typically, we set them and we just assume that that's enough. We'll figure it out as we go, or we'll just take the steps necessary along the way by chance. But somehow, we've done this in the past and it hasn't worked. So even though after years of following the same approach, we haven't changed anything, we commit to New Year's resolutions and expect all to just go seamlessly. But over 90% of resolutions fail by February. So today we're checking in on the goals that we set for ourselves at the beginning of the year. We're about halfway through, and as we head into Q3 and Q4, we want to make sure that we're on track. We want to make sure that we're still working towards those initial goals, or that we reassess, we readjust, and we actually tweak and change as we move into this final part of the year. So let's see where we stand and how we can sort of refine our approach. We're going to chat today about our goals, checking in on them, how they're doing, and we definitely encourage you to do the same. So we're going to give you some tips and pointers in how to check in on how you're doing and how to kind of readjust, change, shift if needed to direct your course until we get to the end of 2024. So Joanna, let's go ahead and check in on how your goals are coming along this year.
Thank you so much for that fantastic intro and setup. I feel really good about my 2024 goals. And I'll be honest, I kept my goals really simple because I had some really big business goals. So my personal goals, I tried to really keep simple this year because that's what was going to work for me. And I think that's a key here when you think about goal setting. Think of things that are going to work for you. When I did goal setting, I picked a word of the year, and it was control. And I didn't mean that in the way of I need to control everyone. I wanted to use that word as a reminder of I have control. I have control over my reactions, my actions, the choices that I make, and really lean into that. One of the reasons that word was really important to me is honestly because of sort of my past experience with religion. Not to get way too deep and weird on this episode, but one of the big things in my growing up was this idea is that you relinquish all control over your life to God. God has control of your life. And I really wanted to take this year to recognize that I actually have control of my fate, of my choices, of my reactions, of how I live my life. And I really feel like I'm starting to embody that. And one of the surprise things that has come into my life this year that I wasn't expecting was bringing in the concept of meditation and changing my mindset through meditation. And that piece has played such a big role in me and kind of my control of myself, of my reactions, of my thoughts. I didn't actually realize the power that my thought patterns had on my day-to-day life and like seeking control of what's going on in my head has been such a powerful experience for me this year. Something I talk about a lot now with friends and with family because I didn't realize that the thoughts and thought patterns in my head had so much of an effect on my life, and how silencing the bad ones and controlling those has really helped me start to embody my word of the year, which was control. Another big goal of mine was to just really get a handle on my health. I think if you listened to our goal setting one, I talked about how I have an autoimmune disease. My health has kind of been up and down, all of these issues, and that I really needed to take time to focus on that. And I've done so much in terms of my lifestyle changes, my medication, and I've really figured out a lot of things. I have an autoimmune disease. Maybe I won't have it forever, but my goal here is to figure out how to live with it, how to not have bad symptoms, have it not hurt my life, have it not be dangerous for me. And I finally can say I'm in a place where like it's kind of stable. I'm stable, and that was not something I could have said a year ago. I was actually like floundering and crashing a year ago. So that's super huge. One of my other goals was to grow a personal brand and to start working on my personal brand. This podcast is an extension of that. My own social media is an extension of that. And I've been hot and cold with it, to be perfectly honest. I get in a really, really good state where I'm posting a lot and growing followers and gaining followers. I've had a couple like fun viral moments throughout this year, but especially coming into the summer, I've struggled with consistency when it comes to my personal brand and growing my personal brand. What is cool is I feel like I've solidified ideas around what I should be posting, the content I want to do, the future offers that I'll create around my personal brand. Like I've solidified a lot of things, but I haven't quite cracked the code to growth and consistency in my personal brand. But that's something that I'm going to continue working on throughout the year. And the summer's a really tough time for me because my daughter's home, like things are a little bit crazy, but something I'm going to refocus on in September of really kind of finishing out the year strong when it comes to growth of my personal brand. A big fun thing, one of my goals was for Millennial to Marketer to launch digital products, and our first digital product is done. So we're starting promotional plans and ads and like all kinds of things to grow that, but we did it, which is super exciting. The bones are there, and now we're ready to start figuring out how to sell it and monetize it, and then eventually make the next digital product. So that's super, super exciting. The other really fun thing is when we did our episode about goal setting, I was like, hey, I want to do goal setting with my family. So we sat down, we went and got coffee, we got our notebooks, me, my husband, and daughter all kind of did some fun goal setting together. And my daughter's goal was to go roller skating. Her 2024 goal was like, I want to go roller skating. And the cutest thing about this is I forgot about it. So like we wrote it down, it was her goal, and I forgot about it. And a couple months ago, she's like, Mommy, we never did my goal. And I was like, what was your goal? She's like, we have to go roller skating. That is my goal for this year. And we went roller skating. So we found a place, we went roller skating. It was fun. We need to go back because it was a blast. But the point here is I think sometimes we think of goals as they have to be something that like greatly moves you forward, make more money, get more sales, exercise, eat right. I love that she included like a fun experiential kind of goal. Like, let's go roller skating. That's my goal for 2024. It was so fun, and we had so much fun doing it.
What a beautiful recap. And I love that there were so many facets to it, right? Because we as human beings often think in silos, and we consider goals just to be like, okay, what am I working on my business? All I've got to focus on is my business, and I'm just going to focus on work. But what about relationships? What about fun? What about play? What about health? What about the rest of you that makes up you as an entire person? It's like we've got to consider all of those facets, because even if we're in a period of time where we're working towards our goals and we're putting in maybe more time and energy than we have at other periods, we still have to live our lives. And it's not just about the destination, it's about the journey, it's about the process along the way. And it's about creating systems and processes and habits that help support you on the way to the destination and to the goal. So I love that our reflection is a little bit less in terms of like, okay, here are the big numbers that we've seen, or here are the successes when it comes to numbers and metrics, but really like, how are we setting ourselves up? And that's what's really important, coming from my health coaching background and coaching background, in goals in the first place. And when we get into and we talk about how to check in on your goals as we kind of wrap up the episode towards the end, is knowing that part of the process is creating steps, creating milestones, creating systems, habits, and processes that help you accomplish the goals, and not getting so married to and invested in the outcome. Noting that Olympians, if they're solely focused on winning the gold, they can go through a huge depression after they reach that gold. Because instead of making it about the passion, about the excellence of what it is that they do on a daily basis, of their exercises, the way that they show up, the joy of actually doing the thing that they're competing in, they've made it all about this thing that they literally have put on a pedestal. And when they accomplish that goal, it's incredibly deflating, because now what do I do with myself? But if instead you set the goal as a height that you're reaching toward, but you focus most of your work on creating the systems and the steps and the milestones along the way, and that is the point of excellence, that is the way in which you're showing up, and that is your life, when you treat it like that, it becomes completely different. So, quick recap of my goals, where I'm at, kind of assessing that, and then we'll take you through how to assess and check in on your goals, tweak, adjust, or shift as we head into the final part of the year. So for me, my word of the year was focus. And I think that I've really taken this to heart. Now, I will say the first 6 months of the year was about almost eliminating. Like, we have an episode on decluttering and going through a digital declutter and kind of detox at the end of last year, or whenever you're going through a transition. And although I did that prior to moving into 2024, this has still been a year of like elimination. And with my word of focus, I've been able to look at my schedule, look at the way that I'm investing my time, the tasks that I'm focusing on, the output that I have, and realizing I'm distracted. I'm going in all of these different directions. Even if it's the same topic, I have a meeting here, I have a recording here, I film content there, I get back to people here, admin is here, and it was just kind of all over the place. And so I've really realized that how I create my schedule through the week, how I invest my time and my energy, has a lot to do with the output of what I'm seeing and the results that I'm getting. So focus for me has been all about, how can I really engage, focus, and fixate on very core activities, practices, daily things that I do in my business that is going to result in the outcome that I'm looking for. The other thing is health. I too have spent quite a bit of time on health this year, getting MRIs, getting lots of lab work done, and figuring out what's going on with the pituitary adenoma. I very recently started medication to help shrink the size of the pituitary adenoma, and also help me regulate prolactin levels, which I think has done a really good job at effectively changing my mood, which is awesome. It has a lot to do with fertility. It has a lot to do with hormones. And even though I'm not a big prescription medication person, for me, this is the right choice right now. And I'm also holistically looking at it through other lifestyle habits. Implementing morning walks has been a huge game changer for me this year. And then consistently moving into my weekly exercise has been really, really important for my mental health, my ability to focus, my clarity when it comes to work, and just the energy to move through the day when it can be really full or jam-packed with a lot of things that I need to accomplish. So health has been kind of a through line, obviously, for most of my life, coming from health coaching and fitness teaching. But so far this year, it's been a priority, and I'm pretty much, I would say, hitting milestones or hitting goals when it comes to that, because I focus more on the consistency of what I'm implementing. I don't set a weight loss goal. I don't say, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds, or hey, I want to lose 20 pounds. I say, I want to go to my exercise class 5 times a week. And then I work up to that. I didn't start at 5 times a week, but I started in smaller stages. So this is how to approach goals, or approach what it is that you're trying to change, or something that you want to do, in increments and in a way that's going to be manageable to you. The other big thing that I had in my business was really consistent content creation. Again, not a follower count goal, even though obviously we have those metrics, not necessarily anything that I'm going to get out of it, but simply what I'm putting into it, because that's what I can control. That's what I can be in charge of, and that's what I can do well and set a level of standard for. So even though I'm still working on my systems when it comes to content creation, how I'm batching, scripting, what that process looks like to write the copy or the caption, if I'm passing that on to video production, all of those pieces, I don't have quite dialed. I obviously have systems that I follow, but it's not where I want it to be just yet. So I'm still working on that, but I am putting out consistent and regular content on a daily basis. And because I'm across multiple businesses and brands right now, which is not a good focus, so transparently, I've had a difficult time with that and really deciding on like, what am I going to really fly to the moon? Like, what is going to be that thing that I'm just going to put all my energy into? That's been tough for me. And I'm getting closer to deciding, but it's been a journey. Let's just say that. But in terms of consistent content creation, I am pumping out more content than I ever have before. And we have a great episode on quality versus quantity. And really, the quantity can create quality over time, but you're not going to be able to learn. You're not going to be able to know what works for you or even get better if you don't create the quantity in the first place. So not only going back and listening to that episode, if it's something that you're interested in learning more about, but if you have a minute, think of who might benefit from a reflection on their goals and maybe send this podcast or a similar episode to so that they can be involved in this conversation. It also helps you be accountable to your goals along the way, and we would greatly appreciate the share. The other thing that we're doing consistently that I'm really proud of is releasing this podcast every single week. Like Joanna and I just put out our 50th episode. 50. That's amazing. And I am so celebrating that. And the fact that I've been able to put out a weekly consistent episode of anything is like, thank God for Joanna, because completely and totally changed my life. And that's helped so much for me with focus, and seeing how she does the project management and uses tools in order to help with that efficiently has been a game changer. So again, the goal for you could not necessarily be, I'm going to get X number of downloads, but I'm actually just going to release something every week, every 2 weeks, once a month. Thinking again of the consistency, the goal stepping as a part of the goal setting process for you. Now, I'm actually in the process of relaunching Fit CEO. I've redone the sales page and I'm working on the content right now, but that was a big goal for me this year because I created this Be Better Empowerment program when I originally launched like years ago, and it's completely taken on a whole new shape and a whole new meaning. So Fit CEO is actually something that I'm currently selling via social media, and that is really exciting for me because it felt like this dormant product that I wasn't leveraging to the best of my abilities, and that I really wanted to bring to the world in a unique and different way. And then there's all this stuff with Michelle Poolani in terms of the brand, launching my freebie, and having a stronger presence there, which I feel like I've worked on, but not really enough to report on. And then with To Be Honest Beverage Company, we validated the offer. It sells in restaurants, it sells in markets, it sells online. And so now, after being featured in some news outlets, after getting on some podcasts, after working some influencers, we're at a place where we're going to be moving into a physical location, and we just want to expand that. So it's more restaurant, it's more retail, it's growing the online brand and presence, and then actually figuring out a way to make consistent sales is how I'm going to head into the rest of the year, whether that's ads, whether that's organic traffic, whether that's influencer and affiliate partners. We're headed down that direction right now. But I would say that we've reached a point where we're looking at TBH as a physical product, as a business, and as a brand that someone, our ideal client or consumer, can look to and say, this is something that I want in my life, and I'm so excited about it. And we know that it sells, we know that it works, and we've got the kind of basic systems in place. So now it's like, okay, how can we now double down on this? How can we expand it? How can we scale? How can we bring on the team members in order to make this successful and find the funding in order to do so? So that is my update. Tried to get it all out as quickly as possible. But exciting things always in the works. And I'm looking forward to the rest of this year, feeling like the first 6 months were a really healthy foundation. Did I reach my engagement goals? Did I reach my follower count goals? Did I reach my financial goals? Absolutely not. But setting up the consistency and the practices in which I can continue to invest in and then start to see that kind of exponential output as I move forward is exactly where I am, and I feel happy and confident about that.
Such a great update. And you've done a lot this year. and have accomplished so many things. And I think it's really easy to look back and be like, I didn't do enough. I didn't do all the things, but you did all the things, it sounds like, to be honest. No pun intended. You just did so much. And I think one of the things when it comes to goal settings, actually two things when it comes to goal settings. One, you probably shouldn't be reaching all of your goals. If your goals are super easy to hit all of them every year, you might not be pushing yourself enough to achieve those things. We set a goal for monthly sales for Millennial. We're not hitting it every single month, but we're tracking ahead of last year. And it's okay that we're not hitting it. Then we're saying, okay, how are we going to hit it this month? How are we going to hit it next month? And we're figuring it out. If we didn't push ourselves to achieve more than we can, then the next year we can't achieve more, right? I think there's this idea that we need to feel bad or ashamed or any of those things because we haven't hit our goals. No, that's not necessarily the point of the goals. Are supposed to be a stretch, something we reach for, something that pushes us forward. So whether or not you had a successful year, but however you want to define success, are you in a better place than you were the previous year, the previous month, the previous quarter, right? Are you pushing forward versus saying, oh no, I didn't hit my goal. I'm a failure, so I'm going to stop. That is what you don't want goals to do. So if you're assessing your goals and thinking, I am nowhere near where I want to be, that is okay. We're arbitrarily talking about this somewhat in the middle of the year. You can be doing this and resetting and rethinking about this at any time.
We really have the opportunity to check in on goals whenever it works for us. And it's so true. It's not about whether you reached the goal or not and having shame, embarrassment, or kind of that sense of guilt come up. It's about recognizing neutrally, oh, I set that goal. I haven't reached it yet. How come? Get curious. Why is that the case? Is it my systems? Is it my schedule? Is it my daily activities? Is it because that goal wasn't aligned with me in the first place? Is it because I have a different focus now? Is it because I've shifted or things have changed? So it's just about creating awareness around where you are, what you're doing, and where you're headed so that you can, again, reorient, reassess, and live your life in a more intentional way.
So if you're sitting down to look at your goals and reassess, we're going to just kind of talk through a way you can think about doing it. And the first thing that you want to do is review your goals. Hopefully you wrote them down somewhere that you remember where they are. If you don't, try to remember and write them down again. And just kind of look through all of your goals, write down where you're at with each of them. This is what I've done. This is where I'm at. You can kind of think of a loose metric to how to define that. If your goal was to post more consistently on social media, look back and say wow, I consistently posted 3 to 5 times a week. That's great. Write that down and make note of how you effectively got towards that goal so you kind of know where you sit with each of your goals. Then the next thing I want you to do is think about the steps that made you successful. So for all the things you did that were successful, how were you successful? I think this is really important because this is how you get better at life. What did you do to make those goals happen?
Also, how did you fail? We can learn so much from our failures. And unfortunately, and this is where I started on this journey, all I did was internalize my failures. So all I did was make them about how bad of a person I am, how wrong I am, how I'm not qualified to do this. Who am I to even try this in the first place? How other people are successful and I'm not. So what you want to do is look at that neutrally and just say, if I failed or if I quote unquote failed in not reaching that goal, why? Again, get curious. But also just look at that as a lesson and an opportunity for you to change that in the future, to adjust, to do something different. Failures are so much a part of our success. And every single person who has reached anything that you envy, that you're jealous of, or that you look up to from a mentorship or a model perspective, they failed a lot more times than you did and in a lot bigger ways to get to where they are. So realize that failures are part of that process. And as you're moving towards your goals and as you're working through this, you're going to fail. But I want you to extract the lessons from that so that you can hopefully learn and not necessarily fail in the same way or fall in the same way any longer.
And I think thinking about failures neutrally, in most cases, a failure isn't morally bad or morally wrong. There's no real value. It just is a thing. So starting to think of it as neutral, as this is a thing that happened, I failed. Let me think about what happened, why it happened, how do I prevent it from happening, what can I learn? It's a neutral thing. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. It happened. And I think when we can start to think about that, we can like erase anxiety and fear when it comes to that. I was talking to my mom literally today about something that happened to her, an issue she's dealing with. When we were talking about it, I was talking very practically about it. What do we do about it? How do we fix this? And she was like, thank you for not shaming me. And I'm like, why would I shame you? It happened. All you can do is make decisions about what to do next, right? This isn't morally bad. It's not morally good. It's a situation. You make a plan. You figure it out. That's all you can do, right? And I think sometimes when we make mistakes and failures, we internalize and we put it on us. And that's probably the only bad thing you can do next is do that. I like to think about when I failed, when I'm not achieving a goal, when I'm not seeing a success, is think about what are the barriers that have kept me from seeing that success. So let's take the example of posting consistently on social media. If you're not posting consistently on social media, thinking about what's keeping you from doing that. Maybe you need maybe it's simply like, oh, if I'm not doing it because I can only post at night and it's too dark and the photos are bad, maybe you just need to buy a light, right? Like maybe the problem is something simple like buying a light. Say it's like, well, I'm great at batch. I film everything, I edit it, and then I don't ever post it. And while I'm not a big fan of scheduling tools, I will say, if getting a scheduling tool is going to get you posting on social media, maybe you get yourself a scheduling tool, right? Think about the barrier that you have that's keeping you from achieving that goal and find a solution for that. Maybe you have too many goals, right? Like maybe you realize my barrier is you were talking about, your focus is too split. So maybe you have to cut goals to achieve this other goal. And you say, actually, I'm going to cut this. Some of the best feelings is when you cut something out of your life. And honestly, I've seen some of the best success in life when I've said, I'm actually not going to do that anymore. So when you're thinking through this process, think about what's keeping you from achieving that goal and do something about that. Because, right, this is a neutral thing. It's not you're bad, you're good. It's neutral. So if you can look at it pragmatically and say, oh, this is why I'm not seeing success. Let me try fixing that thing and see what happens next.
Identifying those things that are getting in your way. And it's so true. Oh my gosh, when you start eliminating things, even if they're things that are somewhat satisfying or that are a great opportunity or that are kind of pulling you like, I should be doing this. When you can actually clear the schedule, when you can actually clear what's in your mind and give yourself the freedom to focus and to actually choose intentionally what it is you're doing, oh my gosh, it's so powerful. And oh my gosh, you will feel so empowered and so joyful in what it is that you're actually then putting that attention on instead of feeling scattered and pulled in all these different directions. You know, we hear that word overwhelm so frequently, especially in the digital landscape, because there's so many different directions you can go. We know it. We know there are all these different ways that you can drive traffic. We know that there are all these different ways that you can capture leads. We know that there are all these different products and programs in which you can deliver your expertise, your skill, your passion. But it doesn't mean that you're going to do all of them at the same time because you're not going to end up doing them very well. So figuring out, again, what that focus is, reducing the barrier to entry or the barrier to whatever it is that you're doing. And sometimes that takes delegation. And sometimes that takes elimination. And sometimes that takes, oh, I'd like to do that, but I'm going to put it to the side for right now. And sometimes that takes, I'm going to reassess my schedule and see where I'm actually investing my time and energy. Does that weekly meeting need to be an hour? Can I make it half an hour? Do I actually have to get on this call with someone that I'm not even sure how they can help or support me? There are lots of ways in which we're just kind of giving away our power, giving away our time, giving away our energy, and not creating the systems and processes that are really going to move you forward, really going to move your business forward. So how can you get more critical about that? And how can you get more protective of your boundaries, setting them, enforcing them, and doing that so that you're effectively working on the 20% of tasks that make the biggest impact in your business?
And as you're going through this process, you've looked at your goals, you've tracked where you are with them, you've thought about your successes, how you got there, why you're successful, you've thought about where you failed, why that's happened from a neutral point of view. You then look at the barriers, what's keeping you from seeing success on the goals you're not seeing success on, now is a great time to reset if you need to. If you had a goal that you're like, okay, I'm not achieving this goal because I'm too focused on this goal, but this other goal is more important, maybe you cut it. Maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to save that for when I've achieved this other goal. Maybe you reset those metrics you want to see. If your goal was to work out 5 times a week, but you're barely hitting 1, maybe you change it to 3, right? You reset and you say, you know what, my actual goal is going to be 3 times because that is a reach for me, but a little bit more achievable. So you have permission to reset, rechange. That doesn't make you a failure. It actually makes you smart. Sometimes cutting things is the thing you actually need to do to see success. Sometimes changing the needle, the metric you're shooting for, might be what you need to do to see success. So take some time, and if you need to reset what you're going for, then do it. And that can be really empowering.
And changing the expectation, right? We've talked a lot about the fact that it's not necessarily about the goal that you're accomplishing or the goal that you're reaching, but the process and steps along the way. So if you go into an event and experience a day, a month, a year with a certain level of expectation, and then you don't meet that expectation and you make it about you and you lose confidence and you have self-doubt and then you feel bad about that experience, you're either again embarrassed or ashamed or feel guilty about not meeting that expectation, that's on you. Like there's no one there. Well, I hope there's no one there putting pressure on you and judging you. And if they are, set that boundary, cut them out. We got to talk about that. But realistically, there's no one there setting that pressure or expectation on you. You have done that for yourself. And you know what remedies that experience and that sadness and that disappointment and this frustration? Changing the thought, changing the expectation. Like you have that power. You have that ability within yourself right now to say, I've been setting unrealistic expectations for myself and it's not motivating me. It's actually making me feel worse about my circumstances and my situation. So maybe I'm going to shift my expectations and change that so that on a day-to-day basis, I feel empowered, motivated, and inspired by the expectation that I'm setting for myself. Should you still strive for excellence? Absolutely. Should you encounter and experience high performance in what you're doing? Absolutely. Do you want to perform at a higher level to reach your metrics and obtain your goals and live that life that you're working toward? 100%. But by shifting the expectation to be one of, this is what I'm striving for, but it's more important that I focus on the process, the system, the habits, and the way in which I'm leading my life than accomplishing that goal. So now I've shifted the expectation to be on me and I'm in charge of that and I'm in control of that and I can do that because I know how to change my behavior to make this happen, then that's success. So just reframing things, looking at it a little bit differently and measuring your expectations accordingly.
Such great advice. I love when we talk about this stuff. It makes me feel inspired to be better and to, go forward and achieving what I want to achieve. And that's really the next step, right? If you're assessing your goals, the ones that you're out of the park, skyrocketing, make sure you have a plan to keep it there. Keep it there where eventually now maybe those things are just habit. You don't even have to think about them. You just do them naturally, and that's fantastic. The goals you're not quite hitting, if you're keeping them on your list because they're important to you, make a plan for what you're going to do differently to achieve that goal. We had a podcast episode with Diane Gayhart who was talking about her TED Talk that she did about habits and growing habits. And she has people start with 5 minutes a day, right? So maybe if your goal was to write a book and you haven't written a book and you haven't made a plan, maybe you just start by saying, hey, I'm going to spend the first 5 minutes of every day writing that book. So you've made a plan. You have a way you're going to act differently to achieve your goal. If you don't make a plan and you just say, oh, I'm going to do better with that goal, that's likely not going to help you do better with that goal. Just saying I will do better will likely not make a difference. But if you make an achievable thing that you could start the next day, I wanted to write a book. I'm not doing that. So I'm just going to say 5 minutes tomorrow. I'm going to work on that book, even if it's just for 5 minutes. You're making a plan to see better success on that goal.
Having the plan just puts this nice little wonderful bow on it. But remember that the plan might not go according to plan, and that's okay. You can readjust, you can shift the plan. And I love this phrasing of it. It's Mimi Bouchard. She does Superhuman. It's an app that focuses on affirmations and ways of thinking. They're kind of like meditations, but they're a little bit more inspired than that. I highly suggest checking it out if you like those kinds of things. But she uses the term bounce back rate. And it's something similar to what I have always practiced and preach in my programs, is that your ability to plan for failure and then your ability to get back up after something has happened is the most important thing you can do. It alleviates that downtime, that sense of like, oh, I'm not doing anything now, or I'm going to get stuck in this vicious cycle of avoiding or procrastinating, because you essentially give yourself permission to falter. You have a plan, you have a strategy. Things aren't always going to go according to how you envision them happening. But knowing that that is the case, I mean, as a business owner, as a founder, especially of this physical product business, and looking for funding and pitching and putting myself out there, I have to think of the worst case scenario. I have to say, if I'm going to get $100,000 for someone, if I'm going to get multi-millions of dollars from someone in order to invest in this business, I have to plan for the worst case scenario, and I need to be able to adjust and pivot and be able to evolve with the changes that are going to happen from an economical perspective, from a societal perspective, from a cultural perspective, and adjust accordingly in my business. So you as a creator, you as a business owner, you as a coach or consultant has the ability to do that. Yes, create the plan, but know that things will change, things will shift, and give yourself permission to evolve and grow with that. Know that it'll happen, and it'll allow you to bounce back a lot faster and get back to your momentum, get back to your motivation, get back to your inspiration, get back to your output so much quicker, which then will help you accomplish that goal that you're reaching toward or for in the first place. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Find the link in the show notes to join us in the Her First Collective, a free Facebook group to discuss the podcast, ask questions of our guest experts, and network with a group of female entrepreneurs who value collaboration over competition.
Please subscribe, share, leave a review, and be sure to catch our next episode. What is one thing you can do today to prioritize you in business and life?